So this excerpt is from the novel Never Let Me Go by Kazu Ishiguro. It was published in 2005. And so you can find this excerpt from part 2 of the novel. It's about chapter 15, when the Hailstrom students are now living in the cottages. Yeah. So specifically, this extract is about Kathy and Tommy finding a tape that Kathy lost while she was still at Hailstrom on a trip to Norfolk. So that's kind of like the larger, they were in Norfolk when they found it. So the beginning of the extract, you see Kathy kind of reflecting on her finding it, and then you see her switch and have dialogue with Tommy. So you kind of see, like, yeah. So I'm going to be talking about, like, three main themes that you see in the passage, and that's the theme of Norfolk, the idea of memory and flashbacks within the text, and then also thoughts and feelings. So to start with Norfolk, the first time we see Norfolk, we see it brought up in Hailsham, and it's like their geography class where they learn about Norfolk, and it's described as the lost corner of the UK. So then from there, the Hailsham students have a running joke that Norfolk is the lost and found of England. So furthermore, we also see Norfolk become a symbol of mystery and kind of like possibility in the novel. So one example of this outside of the extract is Ruth is Possible is spotted by Rodney in Norfolk. That's why they're initially there, to go find them. So then we see examples of this in the passage through the use of diction. So Kathy describes, while they're looking for it, as like sort of a game. She says it had been an excuse for all this fun. So like fun kind of alludes back to the idea that it's a game and it's not really real. Like they know it's not real. It's kind of like a creation, a fantasy bubble in their minds. And she also says that she was pretending later in the thing. Then we see her contrast, like when she's in this fantasy to outside of it. So she's kind of within the fantasy more in her own thoughts versus her dialogue. So we see her go from, or she's in the fantasy more when she's talking to Tommy, because it's like their collective fantasy, sorry. So she's kind of skeptical about it in her own head. She's like, of course I found it. So the of course was not really a of course because of the fantasy, but like it was more irony that she found it. Like she also describes it as a mistake. It's just kind of like a chance, not like because obviously it had to be there because Norfolk is a magical place. And then you see her tone switch from that more negative perspective about her like not really wanting to find it to she then describes, we've really found it, and she gets more excited and seems more genuine. This is also reflective of I think she is often a lot more guarded when she is like, not in her head. She does what she wants other people to do, or because it's expected that Norfolk is this thing that she plays along. She does that, and we also see that in the book earlier with like when she's with Tommy, she is more guarded and it tries not to like admit her feelings for him or anything because he's Ruth's boyfriend. And so our next theme is memory. And so we see a lot of flashbacks here. One of the things I noticed was that in all the flashbacks you see a lot of listing diction. So in 2 different occasions we see Kathy describe the tape as she used to see it. So it says, looking just the way it had all those years ago, Judy, her cigarette, the coquettish look, the barman, the blurred palms in the background. So, and then also, I could remember all the design details on the back, the titles, the tracks, everything. Not only Kathy isn't the only one to do this, but Tommy does this later, when, at the end of the excerpt, when he is talking about how back when she first lost the tape at Hailsham, what he used to think about. And so he says, back then, when you thought you lost it, I used to think about it in my head, what it would be like if I found it and brought it to you. So, here, it's just like, because it goes on and on, like it's listing, you kind of like get more and more details, and so that allows the reader to not only feel as though they are flashing back, I guess you could say. They like, because they're going on and on about it, like it seems almost like they're getting lost in their own memories. Like they're slowly losing awareness of the present time because they're flashing back. And the idea of flashing back and Norfolk kind of go hand in hand. I don't think I already said this. Oh, sorry, this is my 3rd take. Hailsham and the idea of memory like go hand in hand to work with the loss of innocence, and so Norfolk, this is still when they like fantasy idea is more innocent because they still haven't started their donations yet, so like the possibilities are still kind of like up in the air, like their fates aren't completely like set because they haven't started donating yet. And then the last idea is their feelings that are presented. I think this is really important because we see Tommy and Kathy reconnect. They kind of like lost their close friendship after Tommy and Ruth started dating. I guess it's just because like Tommy spent more time with Ruth. But here we see like them kind of confess feelings. I think we kind of see an epiphany from Kathy. And she's like, it was there in front of me. There was something I should have grown out of. And at first I thought this part she was talking about the tape. because it's just there in front of me. But then it says, there was something I should have grown out of, and I was like, she's probably talking about her feelings for the tape. Like, it's this stupid tape. But then it says, it was there in front of me, and then she changes to there. So, like, I feel like she's kind of realizing that she likes Tommy at that point, and she should, like, not like him, because Ruth, I just thought that word made it seem like it broadened the horizons. Like, so she's not just talking about the tape, and we see this also again when she's talking about her feelings for the tape. She says she felt a huge burst of pleasure when she showed it to Tommy, but then it says, and something else. Something more complicated than that. And it also threatened to make her burst into tears, and I feel like that's not just nostalgia, but like, and she's like, but I got a hold of that emotion, and she like doesn't want to say what the emotion is, whereas like if it was nostalgia, she'd be like, it's nostalgia. So like, I feel like she's kind of like, it's love for Tommy, but she doesn't want to say that because she's not supposed to love Tommy. It's Ruth. I also see this from Tommy's side. When he flashes back, he talks about that, if he liked her. He says, I wish I'd found it. So, and then also the description of a small laugh after he does it, and that makes me think of like innocence and like back when they were young, when he used to like her, because he totally used to like her. It's kind of outside of the thing, and I don't want to go into that right now. But this idea of like the small laugh is kind of like nervous, or like, I don't know, I feel like giggling kind of is like, and that goes with flirting. It's like boyish and innocent. And then also in his listing syntax, he like revealed right before it that he put a lot of effort into looking for this tape, and then he had the idea of looking for it to Norfolk, and then like years later he still follows through on that. Like, that's not something, like, that's the type of thing you just forget, but he remembered it. And Norfolk and feelings also connects with the idea of lost and found. So like, they refound their feelings for each other, and you also see this later in the text when they don't act on it right away, but then it comes back at the end when they're looking for the deferrals, which they found out about when they were in Norfolk. So it like all connects. I feel like I'm making that sense. But yeah, also with feelings, I think I touched on this before, but we definitely see a shift when we see a shift from narrative to dialogue. She goes from a lot more skeptical about Norfolk to a lot happier about it. Yeah, so I think that's everything. Okay, well, yeah.